The morning sun filtered through the lace curtains of the small cottage on Maple Street, casting delicate patterns across the worn wooden floors. Roberta Shields stood at her kitchen counter, her weathered hands wrapped around a steaming mug of coffee. At 67, she had settled into a routine that brought her comfort. A routine so different from the chaos of her former life that sometimes she had to remind herself it was real. Her white hair, which she kept in a practical bob, caught the morning light as she gazed out the window at her garden. The roses were blooming again, their pink and white petals nodding gently in the breeze. Gardening had become her meditation, her therapy, her way of staying grounded in this small mountain town called Alder Valley. Roberta took a slow sip of her coffee and smiled softly. The sound of birds chirping outside filled the silence. No ringing phones, no urgent voices, no crisis demanding her immediate attention, just peace. Sweet, ordinary peace. She had lived in Alder Valley for 15 years now, and the townspeople knew her simply as Bertie, the friendly woman who worked at the Tourist Information Center on Main Street. They knew she made excellent apple pie, that she volunteered at the community center on Thursdays, and that she never missed the annual summer festival. They knew she was kind, reliable, and always willing to lend a helping hand. What they did not know was who she had been before Alder Valley, and that was exactly how Roberta wanted it. She glanced at the clock on the wall. 7:30. Time to get ready for work. She finished her coffee, rinsed the mug in the sink, and headed upstairs to her bedroom. The house was small but comfortable, just right for one person. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a cozy living room with a fireplace, and a kitchen that smelled perpetually of cinnamon and vanilla. As Roberta dressed in her usual work attire, comfortable khaki pants and a light blue blouse, she caught her reflection in the mirror. Blue eyes stared back at her, eyes that had seen too much, carried too many memories. She looked away quickly, as she always did, and focused on the simple task of getting ready for another ordinary day. Downstairs, she grabbed her purse and the canvas bag she used for groceries. Tuesdays were farmers' market days, and she planned to stop by after work to pick up some fresh vegetables. Mrs. Henderson always saved the best tomatoes for her. Roberta locked her front door and walked down the quiet street toward Main Street. The morning air was crisp and clean, carrying the scent of pine trees from the surrounding mountains. Alder Valley was nestled in a small valley surrounded by the Sierra Nevada mountains, a town of about 3,000 people who valued simplicity, community, and the slower pace of rural life. As she walked, neighbors called out greetings. "Morning, Bertie," shouted Mr. Jacobs from his porch, where he sat with his morning newspaper. "Beautiful day, isn't it?" "It certainly is, Tom," Roberta called back with a warm smile. She passed the elementary school, where children were already arriving, their laughter echoing across the playground. She passed the post office, the hardware store, and Rosie's Diner, where the smell of bacon and fresh coffee wafted out onto the sidewalk. Finally, she reached the Alder Valley Tourist Information Center, a small building with a cheerful green roof and window boxes full of geraniums. She unlocked the door and stepped inside, breathing in the familiar scent of old books and wood polish. The center was modest. A few racks of brochures about local hiking trails and historical sites, a counter with a computer, and walls decorated with photographs of Alder Valley through the decades. Roberta's job was simple: greet tourists, answer questions about the area, and provide maps and recommendations. It was the kind of job that required patience and friendliness, qualities she had in abundance. She settled into her chair behind the counter and booted up the computer. The morning was quiet, as Tuesdays usually were. Tourist season had not quite peaked yet, though it would in another month when summer vacation began in earnest. Roberta spent the next hour organizing brochures and updating the center's website with information about upcoming town events. At 9 o'clock, the door chimed, and her first visitor of the day walked in. A young couple with backpacks and hiking boots, clearly eager to explore the mountain trails. "Good morning," Roberta greeted them warmly. "Welcome to Alder Valley. How can I help you today?" The couple approached the counter with bright smiles. "Hi, we're here for a few days, and we'd love to do some hiking. Can you recommend any good trails?" Roberta pulled out a trail map and spread it across the counter. "Absolutely. What's your experience level? Are you looking for something easy and scenic, or are you up for a challenge?" For the next 20 minutes, she guided them through the various options, describing the beauty of Eagle Peak Trail, the waterfall at Willow Creek, and the wildflowers that bloomed along Meadow Ridge this time of year. The couple thanked her enthusiastically and left with armfuls of brochures and a marked map. This was Roberta's life now, helping strangers plan their vacations, chatting with locals who dropped by to say hello, and maintaining the town's small connection to the outside world. It was simple work, undemanding work, and she was grateful for it every single day. By noon, the information center had seen a steady trickle of visitors, a family from Sacramento asking about lodging, a solo traveler interested in bird-watching spots, and an elderly man who simply wanted to share stories about growing up in Alder Valley back in the 1950s. Roberta listened to them all with genuine interest, her training from decades past making her an excellent listener even in this new context. During her lunch break, she walked down to the town square, a small park in the center of Main Street, with a gazebo, benches, and a fountain that had been dedicated to the town's founders. She sat on her favorite bench under a large oak tree and unwrapped the turkey sandwich she had packed that morning. The square was busy with lunchtime activity. Office workers from the county administration building sat on the grass eating takeout from Rosie's Diner. Children from the daycare center played on the nearby playground under their teacher's watchful eye. The fountain burbled peacefully in the background. "Bertie, mind if I join you?" Roberta looked up to see Margaret Chen, the town librarian and one of her closest friends in Alder Valley. Margaret was in her early 60s, with short gray hair and glasses that perpetually perched on the end of her nose. "Of course not, Margaret. Have a seat." Margaret settled onto the bench with a sigh of contentment. "What a beautiful day. Sometimes I forget how lucky we are to live here." "I never forget," Roberta said softly, gazing at the mountains in the distance. The two women ate their lunches in comfortable silence for a few minutes, watching the daily life of Alder Valley unfold around them. Margaret had become Roberta's confidant over the years, though even Margaret did not know the full truth about Roberta's past. They talked about books, gardening, town gossip, and the small dramas of daily life. But Roberta had never shared the weight she carried from her years in the FBI. "Are you going to the town council meeting tomorrow night?" Margaret asked. "They're voting on the budget for the new community center renovations." Roberta nodded. "I'll be there. I think the renovations are important. The building is starting to show its age." "I heard the Flemings are in trouble," Margaret said quietly, lowering her voice. "Financial trouble, I mean. Marcus lost his job at the mill last month, and with 3 kids and a mortgage." Roberta's expression softened with concern. She knew the Fleming family. Marcus was a quiet man in his early 40s. His wife Sarah worked part-time at the grocery store, and their 3 children were bright, energetic kids who came to the library regularly. "That's terrible. Is there anything the community can do to help?" Margaret shrugged. "Sarah's too proud to accept charity, and Marcus has been looking for work. But jobs are scarce around here. I heard he's been talking to some friends about borrowing money, but—" She trailed off, shaking her head. "I just hope they'll be okay." Roberta filed this information away in her mind, the way she always did when she heard about someone in the community struggling. She made a mental note to perhaps mention job opportunities at the information center if she heard of any, or to find a subtle way to offer help that would not wound the Flemings' pride. After lunch, Roberta returned to the information center for the afternoon shift. The hours passed peacefully. She helped a photographer find the best vantage points for sunrise shots, directed a family to the nearest gas station, and answered the phone 3 times with inquiries about local bed and breakfasts. At 4:30, just as she was preparing to close up for the day, the door chimed again. Roberta looked up to see Sarah Fleming standing in the doorway, her face pale and drawn with stress. "Sarah! Hello! How can I help you?" Roberta kept her voice cheerful and welcoming, though she could see the strain in the younger woman's eyes. Sarah hesitated, clutching her purse tightly. "Hi, Bertie. I was just wondering if you'd heard about any job openings around town. Anything at all. Marcus is still looking, and we need something." Roberta's heart ached for her. She came around the counter and gestured to one of the chairs in the small waiting area. "Let's sit down for a minute. Can I get you some water?" "No, thank you. I can't stay long. I need to pick up the kids from school." Roberta sat across from her, her mind already working through possibilities. "I haven't heard of anything specific at the moment, but let me make some calls. I know a lot of people in town, and sometimes positions open up that are not formally advertised." "What kind of work is Marcus looking for?" "Anything, really. He worked at the lumber mill for 18 years. He's good with his hands, reliable, hardworking." Sarah's voice cracked slightly. "We're just trying to keep our heads above water." Roberta reached out and gently touched Sarah's hand. "I understand. Let me see what I can find out. And Sarah, you're not alone in this. This community takes care of its own." Sarah's eyes filled with tears, but she blinked them back quickly. "Thank you, Bertie. That means a lot." After Sarah left, Roberta sat quietly for a moment, thinking. She had seen this kind of desperation before, not in Alder Valley, but in her previous life. People pushed to the edge, feeling cornered and hopeless. It was a dangerous state of mind, one that could lead to poor decisions. She shook off the thought. This was Alder Valley, not the big city. Things like that did not happen here. Marcus Fleming was a good man, a family man. He would find his way through this difficult time. Still, as she closed up the center and walked home through the golden afternoon light, she could not quite shake the uneasy feeling that had settled in her chest. Roberta spent the evening as she usually did, tending her garden, preparing a simple dinner of grilled chicken and vegetables, and settling into her favorite armchair with a book. She was reading a mystery novel, the kind with a plucky amateur detective and a cozy small-town setting. The irony was not lost on her. As darkness fell and the crickets began their evening chorus, Roberta set the book aside and stared into the fireplace, where a small fire crackled. This was the time of day when memories had a way of creeping in, uninvited and unwelcome. She had been 45 years old when her life had changed forever. For 25 years before that, she had been Special Agent Roberta Shields, one of the FBI's top crisis negotiators. She had talked down armed suspects, rescued hostages, and saved countless lives through the power of communication, empathy, and psychological insight. Her career had been distinguished. She had trained younger agents, consulted on high-profile cases, and earned the respect of law enforcement agencies across the country. She had been featured in documentaries about hostage negotiation, had written training materials, and had spoken at conferences. Her techniques, her calm voice, her ability to build rapport even in the most intense situations, her gift for finding the thread of humanity in desperate people, had been studied and emulated. And then came the day that ended it all. Roberta closed her eyes, but she could not stop the memory from flooding back. A bank in downtown Chicago, A robbery gone wrong. 3 armed men, 12 hostages, and a standoff that lasted 8 hours. She had been called in to negotiate. Everything had been going according to protocol. She had established communication with the primary suspect, a man named Derek Lynch. She had been building rapport, making progress, creating trust. The tactical team was in position. The hostages were scared but unharmed. She had been confident they could resolve the situation peacefully. But then something had gone wrong. A sound outside, a car backfiring or maybe a protester's sign falling, had startled one of the robbers. In the confusion and panic, shots were fired. One of the hostages, a 26-year-old woman named Jennifer Matthews, was hit. The tactical team had stormed the building. The robbers were apprehended. Jennifer survived. The bullet had gone through her shoulder, missing vital organs. But the damage was done. The negotiation had failed. A hostage had been hurt on Roberta's watch. Logically, Roberta knew it was not entirely her fault. The investigation had concluded that the robber who fired had been unstable, that the situation had been volatile, that she had followed protocol. But logic did not matter to her broken heart. She had failed to keep someone safe. She had not been good enough, fast enough, convincing enough. Jennifer's screams still echoed in her nightmares. The aftermath had been devastating. Roberta had spiraled into depression and guilt. She had taken a leave of absence that turned into early retirement. She had sought therapy, medication, anything to quiet the voices in her head that told her she was a failure, that she had lost her touch, that she did not deserve the accolades she had received. Eventually, she had decided she needed to disappear. She needed to go somewhere no one knew Special Agent Roberta Shields, where she could be just another ordinary person living an ordinary life. She had chosen Alder Valley almost at random, a small town far from Chicago, far from the FBI, far from the memories. For 15 years, she had lived quietly here. She had rebuilt herself piece by piece. She had learned to find joy in simple things: morning coffee, blooming roses, friendly conversations with neighbors. She had buried her past so deeply that sometimes even she forgot it was there. But on nights like this, when the fire crackled and the house was silent, the past came knocking. And she had to face the truth that she carried it with her always, a shadow that would never fully fade. Roberta stood and walked to the window, looking out at the dark silhouette of the mountains against the starry sky. "You're doing fine," she whispered to herself, a mantra she had repeated countless times over the years. "You're okay. You're safe. You're where you need to be." She went to bed early, hoping for dreamless sleep. But as she drifted off, she had no way of knowing that tomorrow would shatter the peaceful life she had so carefully constructed. Wednesday morning began like any other. Roberta woke at 6:30, went through her morning routine, and arrived at the information center by 8. The sky was a brilliant blue, promising another beautiful spring day in Alder Valley. The morning was busy. A group of college students on a road trip stopped by for recommendations on camping spots. An older gentleman asked for directions to the historical museum. A young mother wanted to know where she could find a good pediatrician in town. Roberta handled each request with her characteristic warmth and efficiency, never letting on that she had barely slept the night before, troubled by old memories that refused to stay buried. At 10:15, she was updating the community events calendar on the center's website when she heard it. A sound that made her blood run cold. A gunshot. It was distant, maybe 3 or 4 blocks away, but unmistakable. Roberta's training kicked in instantly. She was on her feet before she even realized she had moved, her heart racing, adrenaline flooding her system. Then came the sirens. Police cars racing down Main Street toward Town Square. Roberta's hands trembled as she grabbed her phone. She pulled up the local emergency scanner app that several townspeople use to stay informed about fires and accidents. The chatter came through immediately. Shots fired at Mountain Valley Bank. Reports of multiple individuals inside. Possible hostage situation. The words hit her like a physical blow. Hostage situation. Her worst nightmare, here in Alder Valley. She listened to the scanner with growing horror as the details emerged. An armed man had entered the small bank branch in Town Square around 10 o'clock. He had fired one shot into the ceiling. That was the gunshot she had heard, and was now holding the bank employees and several customers hostage. He was demanding money and safe passage out of town. Roberta sank into her chair, her mind reeling. This could not be happening. Not here. Not now. More information came through the scanner. The suspect was identified as Marcus Fleming, Sarah Fleming's husband. The man looking for work, the father of 3, the desperate man who had been pushed to the breaking point. "Oh, Marcus," Roberta whispered. "What have you done?" She should stay here. She should stay in the information center, away from the crisis, and let the local police handle it. That was what a retired tourist information center employee would do. That was what Bertie would do. But she was not just Bertie. She was Roberta Shields, and every instinct in her body was screaming at her to go to Town Square, to do something, to help. The scanner crackled again. Suspect is agitated, demanding to speak with someone in charge. Sheriff Donovan is on scene but requesting additional support. This is beyond our training level. Roberta's hands clenched into fists. She knew what that meant. The Alder Valley Sheriff's Department was small, maybe 15 officers total, and they had never dealt with anything like this. Sheriff Donovan was a good man, but he was a rural law enforcement officer who dealt with drunk driving, petty theft, and occasional domestic disputes. He was not trained in hostage negotiation. None of them were. She stood up abruptly. She had to go. She had to at least see what was happening, even if she could not help. No, she could not. She had walked away from that life. She had failed once, and she would not risk failing again. The guilt would destroy her. But people were in danger. Real people. Her neighbors. People she had shared meals with, laughed with, helped at the information center. The internal battle raged for only seconds, but it felt like an eternity. Then Roberta made her decision. She grabbed her purse, locked the information center door, and started running toward Town Square. When Roberta arrived at Town Square, the scene was controlled chaos. Police cars blocked off the streets surrounding the small brick building that housed Mountain Valley Bank. Officers crouched behind their vehicles, weapons drawn. A growing crowd of townspeople gathered at the perimeter, held back by yellow police tape, their faces white with shock and fear. Roberta pushed through the crowd, her mind cataloging every detail with professional precision. The bank's front door was closed. The windows were intact, but covered from the inside with what looked like paper. The suspect was trying to limit visibility. Smart. That meant he was thinking tactically, which could be either good or bad depending on his mental state. She spotted Sheriff Donovan standing beside his patrol car, speaking urgently into his radio. The sheriff was a stocky man in his mid-50s, with a weathered face and graying hair. He looked stressed beyond measure. Roberta made her way to the police line. A young officer she recognized, Deputy Mike Harris, stepped in front of her. "Ma'am, you need to stay back. This is an active situation. I need to speak with Sheriff Donovan. It's important." "Ma'am, the sheriff is busy right now. Please." "Deputy Harris." Roberta's voice took on a tone of command she had not used in 15 years. "Tell the sheriff that Roberta Shields needs to speak with him immediately. Tell him I'm former FBI crisis negotiation." Mike Harris blinked in surprise, his mouth opening slightly. "You're... what?" Just tell him. Now. The deputy hesitated for only a moment before jogging over to the sheriff and speaking quietly in his ear. Sheriff Donovan's head snapped up, his eyes finding Roberta in the crowd. He waved her over. Roberta ducked under the police tape and approached the sheriff, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might burst from her chest. "Bertie?" Sheriff Donovan's confusion was evident. "Mike says you're former FBI?" "Yes. Special Agent Roberta Shields, retired. I was a crisis negotiator for 25 years. I need to know what's happening in there." The sheriff stared at her for a long moment, as if trying to reconcile the friendly information center worker with the woman standing before him now. Then he seemed to make a decision. "We have Marcus Fleming inside with a revolver. He fired one shot into the ceiling about 45 minutes ago. He's holding 4 hostages, 2 bank employees and 2 customers. He's demanding $20,000 and a car with a full tank of gas." "Has he made any threats against the hostages?" "Not explicitly, but he's agitated. We've tried calling the bank's phone, but he won't answer. He did shout out the window once that he doesn't want to hurt anyone, he just needs the money for his family." Roberta processed this information rapidly. "Has anyone been in contact with him at all?" "I tried to approach the door 15 minutes ago. He fired a warning shot toward the door frame. Didn't hit anything, just scared us back. He said he'll talk, but only if we give him what he wants first." Classic standoff behavior. The suspect was desperate but not irrational. He had not hurt anyone yet, which was a good sign, but the situation was volatile. "Sheriff, I can help with this," Roberta said firmly. "I've handled dozens of situations like this. I can try to establish communication with Marcus, build rapport, and talk him into releasing the hostages safely." Sheriff Donovan looked torn. "Bertie, Agent Shields, I don't know. You're retired, and you're a civilian now. The county has protocols. Your protocols are going to get people killed," Roberta said bluntly. "I'm not trying to be harsh, Sheriff, but I know how these situations escalate. You can call in the state police, but they're at least 2 hours away. A lot can go wrong in 2 hours. Marcus is scared and desperate. If he feels cornered, he might do something irreversible." The sheriff ran a hand through his hair, clearly wrestling with the decision. Around them, more townspeople had gathered. Roberta could see Sarah Fleming being held back by 2 friends, her face streaked with tears. The Fleming children were not there, thank God, probably still at school, unaware of what their father had done. "If I let you do this," Sheriff Donovan said slowly, "and something goes wrong, I can't be responsible for that. You're not active FBI anymore. You're not authorized." "I'll sign whatever waiver you need," Roberta interrupted. "I take full responsibility, but please, let me try. I know Marcus. He's a good man who's made a terrible decision because he's desperate. I can reach him." The sheriff looked at her for a long moment, then at the bank, then back at her. Finally, he nodded. "Okay. God help us both, but okay. What do you need?" Roberta felt the familiar mixture of fear and focus settle over her. It had been 15 years since she had done this, but the training was still there, ingrained so deeply it was like muscle memory. "First, I need everyone to lower their weapons," she said. "Marcus needs to see that we're not going to storm the building. We're here to talk, not to fight. Keep them ready, but not aimed at the bank." Sheriff Donovan gave the order, and the deputies complied, though some looked uncertain. "Second, I need a phone connection to the bank. Can you get me the bank's landline?" "We've been calling it. He's not answering." "He will answer when I call. What's the number?" The sheriff gave her the number, and Roberta programmed it into her cell phone. Then she took a deep breath, centering herself. This was it. The moment of truth. Could she still do this? Could she push past her fear and her guilt and become the negotiator she once was? She thought of Jennifer Matthews, the hostage she had failed to protect. Then she thought of the people inside that bank right now, terrified, vulnerable, trusting that someone would save them. She could not fail them. Roberta dialed the number. It rang once, twice, 3 times. On the 4th ring, someone picked up. "Who is this?" The voice was male, tight with stress, breathing hard. Marcus Fleming. "Marcus, my name is Roberta. I'm calling because I want to help you. I want to make sure everyone stays safe, including you." There was a pause. "Roberta? Bertie from the information center?" "Yes, that's me." "Marcus, I know you're in a really difficult situation right now. I know you're scared and you're trying to protect your family. I want to help you do that." "You can't help me. Nobody can help me." His voice rose, panicked. "I've lost everything. My job, my savings. I can't even feed my kids. The bank was going to foreclose on our house. What was I supposed to do?" Roberta kept her voice calm and steady, in direct contrast to his agitation. "Marcus, I hear you. You're facing something overwhelming and you felt like you had no other options. That makes sense. Anyone would feel desperate in your position. I didn't want to do this. I didn't want to scare anyone. I need that money, that's all. Just give me the money and let me go and nobody gets hurt." "I understand that's what you want, Marcus. And I promise you, we're going to figure this out together. But first, I need to know that the people inside with you are okay. Can you tell me that?" There was a shuffling sound, and Roberta heard a woman crying in the background. "They're fine. I haven't hurt anyone. I don't want to hurt anyone." "I believe you, Marcus. I really do. You're not a violent person. You're a father and a husband who's trying to take care of his family. That's admirable. You love your family very much, don't you?" "More than anything." His voice cracked. "That's why I'm doing this. For them." "I know. Sarah and your kids are lucky to have someone who loves them so much." Roberta paused, letting that sit. "Marcus, here's what I'd like to do. I'd like to keep talking with you so we can work through this situation. But I need you to show me some good faith. Can you release one of the hostages? Just one person, as a sign that you're willing to work with me." "No, no! If I let anyone go, you'll come in here and arrest me." "I give you my word that won't happen, Marcus. We're not going to storm the bank. We're just trying to de-escalate this situation. Releasing one person would show me you're serious about not wanting to hurt anyone. It would help me help you." There was a long silence. Roberta waited, not pushing, letting Marcus think. Finally, he said, "I'll release the old man. He has heart problems. He shouldn't be here." Roberta felt a surge of hope. This was progress. "Thank you, Marcus. That's the right decision. When you're ready, send him out the front door. We won't approach the building. He'll just walk out, and we'll make sure he gets medical attention if he needs it." Okay. I'm doing it now." Roberta signaled to Sheriff Donovan, who passed the word to his deputies. Everyone watched the bank's front door with bated breath. A moment later, the door opened, and an elderly man stumbled out, his face ashen. 2 deputies rushed forward and guided him away from the building to safety. The crowd let out a collective sigh of relief. Roberta spoke into the phone again. "Thank you, Marcus. You did the right thing. That was brave of you. I told you, I don't want to hurt anyone. I'm not a bad person. I know you're not. You're someone going through an impossibly hard time. Marcus, can we keep talking? I'd really like to understand more about what you're going through. Would that be okay?" "I guess. But I'm not changing my mind about the money. I need it." "I understand. Let's just talk for now. Tell me about your family. You have 3 kids, right?" And so began the long process of negotiation, building trust, establishing rapport, and slowly carefully working to bring Marcus Fleming out of that bank alive and without hurting anyone. Over the next hour, Roberta talked to Marcus almost continuously. She stood near Sheriff Donovan's patrol car, phone pressed to her ear, completely focused on the voice on the other end of the line. She learned about his life in detail, how he had worked at the lumber mill since he was 22, how he and Sarah had met at a 4th of July festival, how each of their 3 children had been born at the county hospital. She heard about the pride he felt when his oldest daughter made honor roll, the worry when his son broke his arm playing baseball, the joy of his youngest learning to ride a bike. She learned about the mill closing, the fruitless job applications, the mounting bills. She listened to his shame at not being able to provide for his family, his fear of losing their home, his desperation when the bank sent the foreclosure notice. And as she listened, really listened without judgment, Marcus began to calm down. His breathing slowed. His voice lost some of its panicked edge. He was still stressed, still trapped in an impossible situation, but he was no longer on the knife's edge of violence. This was the core of hostage negotiation, not clever tricks or manipulation, but genuine human connection. Roberta had learned long ago that people in crisis needed to be seen, heard, and understood. They needed to know that someone cared about their pain, even if they could not condone their actions. "Marcus," she said, after he had finished telling her about his youngest child's upcoming birthday party they could no longer afford. "I want you to know that I hear everything you're saying. I understand why you felt this was your only option, but I also need to be honest with you about something." "What?" "This path you're on right now, taking money and running, it's not going to save your family. Even if we gave you the money and a car, you'd be a fugitive. You'd be separated from Sarah and the kids, maybe forever. They'd grow up with their father in prison. Is that really what you want for them?" Silence. Then quietly, "I don't know what else to do." "I know, but Marcus, there are other options. The town wants to help you. People care about your family. If you come out of there safely, if we can resolve this without anyone getting hurt, I promise you I'll personally make sure the community rallies around you. We'll find you a job. We'll help with the mortgage. We won't let your family lose their home. You can't promise that. I can, and I do. This is a small town, Marcus. People here take care of each other, but you have to give us the chance to help. You have to trust me. I don't even know you, not really. You're just the lady from the tourist place." Roberta made a split-second decision. It was time to share a piece of herself, to level the playing field. "Marcus, can I tell you something about my past?" "I guess." "Before I came to Alder Valley, I worked for the FBI for 25 years. I was a hostage negotiator. That was my job, to talk to people in situations like yours and help them find a way out. I've sat where you're sitting. I mean, not literally, but I've been in that place of fear and desperation. I know what it feels like to think you have no options." There was stunned silence on the other end. "You were FBI?" "Yes, and I was good at my job. I saved a lot of lives, Marcus. But I also made mistakes. I had a case once where I couldn't protect everyone, and someone got hurt. It wasn't my fault, not really, but I blamed myself anyway. It destroyed me. I left the FBI. I came here to Alder Valley to start over, to find peace. And I did. This town gave me that." "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I want you to know I understand what it's like to fail, to feel like you've let everyone down. But I also learned something important. One bad decision doesn't define you. What defines you is what you do next. You can still make this right, Marcus. You can still be the father your kids deserve. But you have to choose it." Marcus's breathing was ragged now, but not with panic, with emotion. "I'm so scared. I know, but you're not alone. I'm here with you, and I'm not going anywhere until we figure this out together. By early afternoon, the situation had stabilized into a tense but controlled standoff. Roberta had managed to get Marcus to release a second hostage, one of the bank employees, a young woman who was clearly traumatized but physically unharmed. That left two people still inside: the bank manager, a man named Robert Chen, Margaret's cousin, and a customer named Linda Torres. The crowd outside had grown. News vans from nearby counties had arrived. The state police had been contacted and were on their way. But Roberta had convinced Sheriff Donovan to let her continue the negotiation as long as progress was being made. Sarah Fleming had approached Roberta during a brief break in the conversation. She was distraught, but trying to hold herself together. "Please," Sarah had begged, tears streaming down her face. "Please bring him home safely. He's not a bad man. He's just... We've been so desperate. I should have done more. I should have found a way." Roberta had taken Sarah's hands in hers. "This is not your fault, and Marcus is going to be okay. I promise you, I'll do everything I can to bring him out safely." Now, as the sun began its descent toward the mountains, casting long shadows across town square, Roberta was back on the phone with Marcus. They had been talking for hours, and she could hear the exhaustion in his voice. "I'm tired, Roberta. I'm so tired. I know you are. You've been carrying this weight for so long. But Marcus, I think we're getting close to a resolution. I think you're ready to end this." "I don't know. I'm still scared of what happens next. Prison, losing my family. How can I face my kids after this?" Roberta chose her next words carefully. "Your kids love you, Marcus, and kids are more forgiving than we give them credit for. They'll understand that you made a mistake because you were trying to protect them. What they'll remember is that you had the courage to stop before anyone got hurt, that you chose the right thing in the end. It feels too late for that. It's not. It's never too late to do the right thing. Marcus, I want you to think about this. Right now, in this moment, you have a choice. You can continue down this path and it will end badly. Maybe with you hurt, or someone else hurt, or you spending decades in prison away from your family. Or you can choose to walk out of that bank right now, with your head held high, knowing you didn't hurt anyone, knowing you made the brave choice. They'll arrest me. Yes. You'll face consequences for what you've done. But those consequences will be so much lighter if you surrender voluntarily, if everyone walks out safely. We're talking about a few years, Marcus, not a lifetime. And your family will be waiting for you when you get out. They won't abandon you. This community won't abandon you. I won't abandon you." There was a long, heavy silence. Roberta waited, her heart pounding. This was the critical moment. Everything hung in the balance. Finally, Marcus spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. "What do I have to do?" Relief flooded through Roberta, but she kept her voice steady. "It's simple. You're going to release Robert and Linda. They'll walk out the front door first. Then you're going to put down your weapon. You're going to leave it inside the bank, far away from you. Then you're going to walk out with your hands up. The police will come forward, they'll handcuff you, and it will be over. No one will hurt you. I'll be standing right there, watching to make sure you're treated fairly. Can you do that?" "I think so. I'm scared." "Being scared is okay. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's doing the right thing even when you're afraid. And Marcus, this is the most courageous thing you'll ever do." Another long pause. Then, Okay, I'll do it. Thank you, Marcus. You're making the right choice. Now here's what we're going to do, step by step." Roberta coordinated carefully with Sheriff Donovan, making sure every officer knew exactly what was about to happen and what their role would be. The last thing they needed was a nervous deputy making a move that would spook Marcus. She kept Marcus on the phone, talking him through each step, her voice a constant, calming presence. "Okay, Marcus, when you're ready, send Robert and Linda out. Tell them to walk slowly and keep their hands visible. We're not going to rush them. They'll just walk out, and my colleagues will get them to safety." "I'm telling them now," Marcus said, his voice shaking. Moments later, the bank door opened. Robert Chen emerged first, followed by Linda Torres. Both looked terrified, but unharmed. They walked quickly away from the building, where they were immediately surrounded by deputies and medical personnel. "Good, Marcus. That's perfect. You're doing great. Now, the hard part. Where's your weapon?" "It's on the counter, the gun. I'm moving away from it now." "Good. Walk away from it. Go to the middle of the room, somewhere you can see the door clearly." "Okay, I'm there. Now I want you to take a deep breath." "Are you breathing?" "Yeah, I'm breathing." "Good. You're almost through this. When you're ready, I want you to walk to the front door. Open it slowly. Step outside with your hands raised above your head. Can you do that?" There was a long, agonizing pause. "Marcus, are you still with me?" "I'm here. I'm scared they're going to shoot me." "No one is going to shoot you. I'm standing right here in the open. I can see every officer. Their weapons are holstered. You're going to walk out, and you're going to be safe. I promise you." "You promise?" "I promise. Now come on. Your family is waiting. Sarah needs to see that you're okay. Come out, Marcus. It's time." She heard him take a shaky breath, then footsteps, the sound of the door opening, and then there he was, Marcus Fleming, standing in the doorway of Mountain Valley Bank, his hands raised high above his head. He was crying, his face contorted with fear and relief and shame all at once. "That's it, Marcus. Keep walking. Come toward my voice. You're doing beautifully." He walked forward slowly, and Sheriff Donovan and 2 deputies moved in. They guided him to the ground, handcuffing him gently. Marcus did not resist. He simply collapsed, sobbing, as the deputies secured him. Roberta walked forward until she was standing over him. She knelt down so he could see her face. "You did it, Marcus. You did the right thing. I'm proud of you." He looked up at her, tears streaming down his face. "Thank you. Thank you for believing in me." "Always," she said softly. As the deputies led Marcus to a patrol car, Sarah Fleming broke through the police line and ran toward them. Sheriff Donovan let her approach. She and Marcus had a brief, tear-filled moment together before he was taken away. Sarah turned to Roberta, her face awash with gratitude and anguish. "Thank you. Thank you for saving him. Thank you for bringing him back." Roberta hugged her, feeling the younger woman's sobs against her shoulder. "He saved himself, Sarah. He made the choice. You have a brave husband." All around them, the town erupted in applause. The hostages were safe, Marcus was in custody, and miraculously, no one had been hurt. It was over. The next few hours were a blur. Roberta gave her statement to the state police who had arrived near the end of the incident. She explained her background, her qualifications, and the techniques she had used to negotiate Marcus's surrender. The state police were impressed, but also slightly bemused that a retired FBI agent had been living anonymously in a small mountain town for 15 years. Sheriff Donovan vouched for her completely. Agent Shields saved lives today. Without her, this could have ended very differently. The media wanted interviews, but Roberta declined. She was not interested in attention. She had done what needed to be done, nothing more. By evening, she was exhausted. She walked home through streets that felt strangely familiar, yet different. Word of her true identity had spread through Alder Valley like wildfire. People who had known her as Birdie, the nice lady from the tourist center, now knew she was Special Agent Roberta Shields, retired FBI negotiator and hero. As she walked, people approached her, some to thank her, others simply to stare in wonder. Margaret Chen caught up with her near the library. "Roberta," Margaret said, slightly out of breath, "why didn't you tell me? All these years, we've been friends, and I never knew." Roberta stopped and turned to face her. "I'm sorry, Margaret. I wasn't trying to deceive you. I needed to leave that life behind. I needed to be someone else for a while." Margaret's expression softened. "I understand. But my God, Roberta, you were incredible today. You saved my cousin's life. You saved all of them. I just did what I was trained to do." "No, you did what you were born to do. And I'm honored to have you as a friend, no matter what name you use." Roberta felt tears prick her eyes. "Thank you, Margaret. That means more than you know." When she finally reached her cottage, she found a surprise waiting on her doorstep, a bouquet of wildflowers with a note that read, "Thank you for being our guardian angel, the people of Alder Valley." She carried the flowers inside, set them in a vase on her kitchen table, and sank into her armchair. The house was quiet, except for the ticking of the clock and the sound of her own breathing. For the first time in 15 years, she allowed herself to truly think about Jennifer Matthews, the woman she had failed to protect all those years ago. The guilt and pain were still there, but somehow they felt different now. Lighter. She had saved lives today. 4 hostages, Marcus himself, and in a way, Marcus's entire family. She had not let her fear stop her. She had not let her past failure define her present action. Maybe, she thought, redemption was not about erasing the past. Maybe it was about learning from it, carrying it forward, and using it to do better next time. 3 days later, the town council held a special meeting at the community center. The room was packed with residents, all buzzing with conversation. Roberta had been asked to attend, though she was not sure why. Mayor Patricia Simmons, a warm woman in her 60s, called the meeting to order. "Thank you all for coming. I know it's been an eventful week for our community. I want to start by acknowledging the bravery and quick thinking of Sheriff Donovan and his department during Wednesday's incident." There was applause. Sheriff Donovan, seated in the front row, nodded his appreciation. "But there's someone else we need to recognize," the mayor continued. "Someone who, it turns out, has been living among us for 15 years without any of us knowing her true background. Roberta Shields, would you please stand?" Roberta felt her face flush as she stood. The entire room turned to look at her. "Roberta," the mayor said, "we've learned this week that before you came to Alder Valley, you served with distinction in the FBI for 25 years. You were one of the country's top crisis negotiators. And on Wednesday, when our community faced an unprecedented crisis, you stepped up without hesitation and saved lives. You talked Marcus Fleming down from a potentially tragic situation. You protected Robert Chen and Linda Torres. And you did it with compassion and skill that left all of us in awe." The room erupted in applause. People stood, clapping and cheering. Roberta felt tears well up in her eyes. When the applause died down, the mayor continued. "I know you came to Alder Valley seeking peace and privacy. We respect that. But I hope you also know that this community values you, not just for what you did this week, but for the 15 years of kindness, service, and friendship you've given us as Birdie. You belong here, Roberta. You're one of us, and we're grateful to have you." More applause. Roberta sat down, overwhelmed with emotion. After the meeting, people approached her one by one. Robert Chen shook her hand and told her he would never forget what she had done. Linda Torres hugged her and cried. Even young people who had barely known her before wanted to thank her. Margaret found her in the crowd and linked arms with her. "Ready to go home, famous lady?" Roberta laughed. "More than ready." As they walked out into the warm evening air, Margaret said, "You know, I've been thinking. Now that everyone knows what you can do, maybe the county should make you an official consultant or something, for situations like this." She had saved lives today. 4 hostages, Marcus himself, and in a way, Marcus's entire family. She had not let her fear stop her. She had not let her past failure define her present action. Maybe, she thought, redemption was not about erasing the past. Maybe it was about learning from it, carrying it forward, and using it to do better next time. Roberta shook her head. "I don't think so. I'm retired for a reason. This week it was necessary. But I don't want to go back to that life full time." "Fair enough. But at least you know now that if you're ever needed, you haven't lost your touch." Roberta smiled. "No, I suppose I haven't." 2 weeks after the incident, Roberta drove to the county jail to visit Marcus Fleming. He was awaiting trial, though his attorney was optimistic about a plea deal that would result in a relatively light sentence given the circumstances and the fact that no one had been hurt. She was led to a small visiting room where Marcus sat on the other side of a glass partition. He looked thinner than she remembered, his face gaunt with stress and shame. When he saw her, his eyes filled with tears. "Agent Shields, I didn't think you'd come." Roberta sat down and picked up the phone. "Call me Roberta." "And of course I came. I told you I wouldn't abandon you, didn't I?" Marcus wiped at his eyes. "I don't deserve your kindness. I put people's lives in danger. I scared them. I scared my own family." "You made a terrible decision in a moment of desperation," Roberta said gently. "But you also made the right choice when it mattered most. You let the hostages go. You surrendered. You didn't hurt anyone. That counts for something, Marcus. I'm going to prison. Probably. But not for as long as you feared. Your attorney says you're looking at 3 to 5 years, maybe less, with good behavior. And when you get out, your family will be waiting, every day. She brings pictures from the kids. She says they miss me." His voice broke. "She says they still love me." "Of course they do. You're their father. And Marcus, I have news for you. The community has rallied around your family. Remember what I promised you? People have been donating money, volunteering to help Sarah with the kids, even working to save your house from foreclosure. The local church has set up a fund. Your family is being taken care of." Marcus put his face in his hands and sobbed. When he finally looked up, he said, "Why? Why would they do that for us after what I did?" "Because that's what communities do. They forgive. They help. They understand that good people sometimes make bad choices. And Marcus, there's something else. When you get out of prison, there will be a job waiting for you. Sheriff Donovan has already agreed to it. You'll be working with the county's community outreach program, helping other families facing financial crises find resources before they get desperate. You're going to make sure no one else goes through what you did." Marcus stared at her in disbelief. "You did that? You set that up?" "I told you I'd make sure you were taken care of. I keep my promises." "I don't know what to say." "Say you'll use this experience to help others. Say you'll be the father your kids deserve. Say you'll keep fighting to be better. That's all I need to hear." Marcus nodded, wiping tears from his face. "I will. I promise. I will." Before she left, Roberta said one more thing. "Marcus, I want you to remember something. What happened to you, the desperation, the fear, the bad decision, that doesn't define you. What defines you is what you do after. You get to write the rest of your story. Make it a good one." As spring turned to summer, life in Alder Valley gradually returned to normal. or rather, to a new normal. The incident at Mountain Valley Bank became part of the town's history, a story that would be told and retold for years to come. Roberta continued working at the Tourist Information Center, though now visitors sometimes recognized her from news articles or online stories about the incident. She handled the attention with grace, always redirecting praise to Marcus for having the courage to surrender and to the townspeople for their compassion. She also began doing something she had not done in 15 years. She started conducting training sessions. Sheriff Donovan asked if she would be willing to teach his deputies some basic crisis negotiation techniques, just in case something similar ever happened again. She agreed, and one Saturday a month, she held workshops at the police station. It felt good to be using her skills again, to be passing on her knowledge. But she was careful to maintain balance. This was not a return to her old life. It was an integration of her past with her present. Margaret teased her about being the town's secret weapon, but Roberta just laughed it off. She was content to remain mostly in the background, living her quiet life with her garden and her books and her friends. The Fleming family slowly began to heal. Sarah continued to work at the grocery store, and the community continued to support them. The children were in therapy, processing what had happened with their father, but they were resilient. Marcus wrote letters from jail, letters full of apology and love and hope for the future. One evening in late June, Roberta was tending her roses when Margaret appeared at her garden gate, holding a bottle of wine and 2 glasses. "I thought we could sit on your porch and watch the sunset," Margaret said. "What do you say?" Roberta smiled and set down her gardening tools. "I say that sounds perfect." They settled into the porch chairs, and Margaret poured the wine. For a while, they just sat in comfortable silence, watching the mountains turn purple and gold in the dying light. Finally, Margaret said, "Can I ask you something personal?" "Of course." "Do you regret coming here? I mean, you gave up a prestigious career, a life where you were making a big difference. Do you ever wish you'd stayed?" Roberta thought about the question carefully. "No," she said finally. "I don't regret it. I needed to come here. I needed the peace and the simplicity. I needed to heal from what happened in my old life. Alder Valley gave me that. But you're so talented, Roberta. You could have kept saving lives. I am saving lives, just in different ways. I help tourists find beautiful trails. I volunteer at the community center. I make apple pies for church bake sales. I listen to my neighbors when they need to talk. Those things matter too. Maybe they don't make the news, but they make a difference." Margaret nodded slowly. "You're right. I guess I admire you so much. The way you handled that situation with Marcus. You were so calm, so skilled. It was like watching a master artist at work." Roberta felt her cheeks warm. "I was terrified, Margaret. The whole time, I was terrified I would fail again, that someone would get hurt, that my past would repeat itself. But you didn't fail. You were amazing. I was lucky. And I had help. From the sheriff, from the deputies, from the whole community pulling together. It wasn't just me." They sipped their wine in silence for a moment. Then Roberta added, "You know what I realized during that whole ordeal? The thing I was running from all these years. The guilt, the fear of failure. It's not something you can escape. It's part of who you are. But it doesn't have to control you. I failed once, yes. But I succeeded many more times than I failed. And this time, when it mattered, I was able to push past my fear and do what needed to be done. That's growth. That's healing. That's wisdom," Margaret said softly. As the stars began to appear in the darkening sky, Roberta felt a deep sense of contentment settle over her. She had found her place in the world. She had made peace with her past. She had learned that redemption was not about being perfect. It was about showing up, doing your best, and caring about people. And here in Alder Valley, surrounded by mountains and friends and the simple rhythms of small-town life, she was exactly where she needed to be. In early August, Marcus Fleming's trial began. It was held at the county courthouse, and the small courtroom was packed with spectators. Townspeople from Alder Valley, journalists, and family members of both the defendant and the former hostages. Roberta attended every day of the trial, sitting in the back row. She had been called as a witness, and when her turn came, she walked to the stand with quiet confidence. The prosecutor asked her to describe the events of that day, Marcus's state of mind, the negotiations, the way he had ultimately surrendered. She answered clearly and factually, neither embellishing nor minimizing what had happened. Then it was the defense attorney's turn. He was a kind-faced man in his 50s named Robert Callahan, who had taken Marcus's case pro bono after hearing about the circumstances. "Agent Shields," he began, "in your expert opinion as someone who has negotiated in dozens of hostage situations, how would you characterize Mr. Fleming's behavior during this incident?" Roberta thought carefully before answering. Marcus Fleming was a desperate man who made a terrible decision. However, throughout our interactions, he consistently expressed that he did not want to hurt anyone. He released hostages voluntarily. He responded to reason and compassion. When given the opportunity to make the right choice, he took it, even though it meant facing significant consequences. In my experience, that demonstrates a fundamentally decent person who was pushed beyond his limits by circumstances outside his control. Did you fear for the lives of the hostages? Of course. Any situation involving a weapon is potentially lethal. But Marcus's behavior, his willingness to communicate, his emotional responses, his concern for the hostages' welfare, all indicated to me that he was not someone intent on violence. He was someone seeking a solution to an impossible problem. If you had been dealing with a truly violent offender, someone intent on harming others, how would that situation have differed? A violent offender typically shows different behavioral markers: a lack of empathy for victims, escalating threats, unstable emotional responses, refusal to negotiate. Marcus showed none of these signs. He was scared, yes, and desperate, but he was not cruel or violent by nature. The defense attorney nodded. "Thank you, Agent Shields. No further questions." Later, Robert Chen took the stand. The prosecutor asked him to describe his experience as a hostage. "It was terrifying," Robert said honestly. "I was scared for my life and for Linda's life. But—" He paused, seeming to struggle with his words. Marcus kept apologizing to us. He kept saying he didn't want to hurt us, that he just needed help. He let us sit down. He brought us water. He even apologized for keeping us from our families. I'm not excusing what he did. Holding someone hostage is never okay. But he's not a monster. He's a desperate father who made a horrible mistake." Linda Torres echoed similar sentiments when it was her turn. "I was scared, yes. But Marcus never threatened us directly. He seemed more scared than we were, honestly. When Agent Shields was talking to him on the phone, I could hear him crying. He was broken, not evil." Sarah Fleming testified with tears streaming down her face, describing the months of financial strain, the mounting pressure, the fear of losing their home. "My husband is a good man," she said firmly. "He made a terrible choice, and he knows that. But he did it because he was trying to save his family. He thought he had no other options. I'm not saying what he did was right, but I understand why he did it." When the prosecution and defense had finished presenting their cases, the jury deliberated for less than 4 hours. The verdict: guilty of attempted robbery and unlawful restraint, but with a strong recommendation for leniency given the circumstances. The judge, a stern-looking woman named Judge Patricia Morrison, addressed Marcus directly before sentencing. "Mr. Fleming, what you did was serious. You terrorized innocent people. You put lives at risk. You violated the law in a profound way. However, I have also heard testimony about your character, your desperation, and the way you ultimately chose to end the situation peacefully. I have heard from the victims themselves, who, while understandably traumatized, have asked for mercy on your behalf. I have heard from a highly respected former FBI agent who vouched for your fundamental decency." She paused, her stern expression softening slightly. "The law requires punishment, but it also allows for redemption. I am sentencing you to 4 years in state prison, with the possibility of parole after 2 years. I am also recommending that you receive counseling and that you participate in community service programs upon your release. Mr. Fleming, I hope you use this time to reflect on your actions, to heal, and to prepare yourself to be the father and husband your family needs. This is your second chance. Don't waste it." Marcus stood, tears streaming down his face. "Thank you, Your Honor. I won't. I promise." As the bailiffs led him away, he caught Roberta's eye across the courtroom. He mouthed 2 words. "Thank you." She nodded in acknowledgement, feeling a complex mixture of emotions: relief that he had received a fair sentence, sadness for what he and his family had endured, and hope for what might come next. The leaves began to turn in late September, painting the mountains around Alder Valley in brilliant shades of gold, orange, and red. Roberta's garden transitioned from summer flowers to autumn mums and asters. The air grew crisp, carrying the scent of wood smoke from chimneys being used for the first time since spring. Life had settled into a comfortable rhythm again. The media attention had faded. The tourists who came through the information center rarely connected Bertie with the news stories they might have seen months ago. Roberta was once again just a friendly face in a small town, which was exactly how she preferred it. One Thursday afternoon, she was at the community center for her usual volunteer shift. She had been helping organize the center's library for the past 5 years, cataloging books, setting up reading areas, and occasionally hosting a book club for seniors. Today, she was sorting through donations when Margaret appeared in the doorway. "Roberta, there's someone here to see you." Roberta looked up, curious. "Who?" "Jennifer Matthews." The name hit Roberta like a physical blow. She set down the book she was holding, her hands suddenly trembling. "What?" "Jennifer Matthews, the woman from Chicago, from your old case. She says she needs to talk to you." Roberta's mind raced. After all these years, Jennifer had found her? Here, in Alder Valley? How? Why? "Should I tell her you're not available?" Margaret asked gently, seeing the distress on Roberta's face. "No," Roberta said, steadying herself. "No, it's okay. Send her in." Margaret disappeared, and a moment later, a woman entered the room. She was in her early 40s now, with dark hair and kind eyes. She looked healthy, normal. Nothing like the terrified, wounded victim Roberta remembered from that terrible day in Chicago. "Agent Shields," Jennifer said softly. "I'm so sorry to ambush you like this. I wasn't sure you'd agree to see me if I called first." Roberta stood on shaky legs. "Jennifer, I don't know what to say. How did you find me?" "I've been following your story. The incident here in Alder Valley. It was in the news. When I saw your name, I knew I had to come. I've been wanting to talk to you for 16 years. "I'm so sorry," Roberta blurted out, the words tumbling out before she could stop them. "I'm so sorry for what happened to you. I should have protected you. I should have—" "Stop," Jennifer interrupted gently. "Please, that's not why I'm here." She moved closer, and Roberta could see that her eyes were filled with tears. Agent Shields, Roberta, I came here to thank you. Roberta stared at her in disbelief. Thank me? But you were hurt. You were shot because I failed. You didn't fail, Jennifer said firmly. You saved my life. You saved all of our lives that day. Yes, I was injured, but I survived. I went home to my family. I got married. I had 2 children. I built a life. And that's because of you. But the gunshot was not your fault. I've spent years in therapy processing what happened. I've learned about hostage situations, about negotiation, about how unpredictable these scenarios are. What happened to me was the result of one panicked man's split-second decision. It had nothing to do with your skills or your efforts. You were trying to save me, and you did. Roberta felt tears streaming down her face. I've carried the guilt for so long. I left the FBI because I thought I couldn't do the job anymore, that I'd lost my ability to protect people. Jennifer reached out and took Roberta's hands. When I heard about what you did here in Alder Valley, how you talked that man down, how you saved those hostages without anyone getting hurt, I wasn't surprised at all, because that's who you are. You're someone who saves people. You saved me, and you saved those people here, and probably hundreds of others I'll never know about. I don't know what to say. Say you'll forgive yourself, Jennifer said softly. Say you'll stop carrying guilt that was never yours to carry. I forgave you years ago. Not that there was anything to forgive, but I needed you to know that. I needed you to hear from me that you are not responsible for what happened. You're a hero, Roberta. You always have been. The 2 women embraced, both crying now. Years of pain and guilt seemed to pour out of Roberta in that moment, replaced by something lighter, something like peace. When they finally pulled apart, Jennifer wiped her eyes and smiled. I should go. I just needed to tell you that. I needed you to know that you gave me my life back, and I've lived it fully and gratefully. Thank you, Roberta whispered. Thank you for coming. You have no idea what this means to me. After Jennifer left, Roberta sat alone in the community center library for a long time, surrounded by books and silence. She thought about the weight she had been carrying all these years, the guilt that had driven her from her career and into hiding. And she realized that she could finally put it down. She had not failed Jennifer. She had saved her. And in saving Marcus Fleming and his hostages just a few months ago, she had proven to herself that her skills, her compassion, and her ability to make a difference were still intact. The past did not define her. It had shaped her, yes, but it did not control her. She was free. As winter approached, Alder Valley began its annual preparations for the holiday season. The town council organized the decorating of Main Street with lights and garland. The community center planned its Christmas fair. Families started planning their celebrations. Roberta found herself busier than ever. She was still working at the information center, still volunteering on Thursdays, but she had also taken on a new role at the request of Sheriff Donovan. She was now the official crisis intervention consultant for the county sheriff's department. It was a part-time, as-needed position that paid a small stipend. She would not be called out for every incident, only those that involved potential violence, mental health crises, or situations where de-escalation was crucial. The first call came on a cold November night. A man barricaded in his house, threatening self-harm. Roberta drove to the scene, talked to the man through the door for 2 hours, and eventually convinced him to come out and accept help. No one was hurt. The man was taken to a hospital for evaluation and treatment. The second call was a domestic dispute that had escalated. Again, Roberta's calm presence and skilled communication helped resolve the situation before it turned violent. She was not working full-time. She was not returning to the stress and intensity of her FBI days. But she was using her skills to help her community, and that felt right. Margaret teased her about being Alder Valley's guardian angel, but Roberta just shook her head. I'm just someone with useful training who's willing to help. That's all. In early December, Roberta received a letter. It was from Marcus Fleming, writing from prison. Dear Roberta, I hope this letter finds you well. I wanted to write to you to let you know how I'm doing and to thank you again for everything you did for me and my family. Life in here is hard, but I'm managing. I'm attending counseling sessions like the judge recommended, and they're helping me understand the desperation and poor decision-making that led me to that terrible day. I'm also taking classes. I'm working on getting my GED and learning about financial management so I can better support my family when I get out. Sarah and the kids visit regularly. The kids are doing well in school. My oldest daughter made the honor roll again. My son joined the soccer team. My youngest lost her first tooth. I'm missing so much, and that's the hardest part. But Sarah tells me that the community is still helping them, and that keeps me going. She told me you've been checking in on them too. Thank you for that. Thank you for keeping your promise. I think about that day a lot. I think about how close I came to ruining everything. Not just for myself, but for my family and for the innocent people I put in danger. And I think about how you saw something in me worth saving. You believed I could make the right choice, even when I didn't believe it myself. You told me once that one bad decision doesn't define a person. I hold on to that every day. I'm working to be better, to be the man my family deserves. And when I get out, I'm going to spend the rest of my life proving that your faith in me wasn't misplaced. Thank you, Roberta, for everything. With gratitude and respect, Marcus Fleming Roberta folded the letter carefully and placed it in her desk drawer. She would write back, she decided. She would tell Marcus about the progress his family was making, about the community's continued support, about her own journey toward healing and forgiveness. Because that's what people did. They supported each other, believed in each other's capacity for change, and gave each other second chances. After Jennifer left, Roberta sat alone in the community center library for a long time, surrounded by books and silence. She thought about the weight she had been carrying all these years, the guilt that had driven her from her career and into hiding, and she realized that she could finally put it down. She had not failed Jennifer. She had saved her. And in saving Marcus Fleming and his hostages just a few months ago, she had proven to herself that her skills, her compassion, and her ability to make a difference were still intact. The past did not define her. It had shaped her, yes, but it did not control her. She was free. Christmas Eve arrived with a light dusting of snow, transforming Alder Valley into a postcard-perfect winter scene. The town square was lit up with thousands of twinkling lights. The gazebo had been decorated with wreaths and ribbons. Children sledded down the gentle hill near the elementary school while their parents watched and laughed. Roberta stood at her kitchen window, looking out at her snow-covered garden. She was hosting Christmas dinner tomorrow. Margaret, Sheriff Donovan and his wife, Robert Chen and his family, and a few other friends from town. She had spent the day baking pies and preparing a ham. A knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. She opened it to find Sarah Fleming standing on her porch, bundled in a thick winter coat, her cheeks red from the cold. "Sarah, come in, come in. Is everything all right?" Sarah stepped inside, stamping snow from her boots. "Everything's fine. I just wanted to bring you this." She held out a wrapped package. "Oh, you didn't have to get me anything." "Please," Sarah interrupted. "It's from all of us, me and the kids. We wanted you to have it." Roberta took the package and unwrapped it carefully. Inside was a framed photograph. It showed Marcus and his family from several years ago, before the trouble had started. All 5 of them smiling at the camera, happy and carefree. Below the photo, someone had written in careful handwriting, "Thank you for giving us hope. With love and gratitude, the Fleming family. Roberta felt tears spring to her eyes. Sarah, this is beautiful. Thank you. Sarah's own eyes were wet. You've done so much for us. You saved Marcus. You've checked in on us. You helped the community organize support for us. I don't know how we'll ever repay you. You don't need to repay me. Just take care of each other. Keep your family strong. That's all I need. We will, I promise. Sarah hesitated, then added, Marcus is up for parole review in 8 months. His lawyer thinks he has a good chance. That's wonderful news. When he gets out, we're going to be okay. We're going to make it work. Because of what you taught us, that bad decisions don't define us, that we can always choose to do better. After Sarah left, Roberta placed the photograph on her mantel, next to the pictures of her own family, her parents, long past, and her brother who lived in Oregon and called regularly. She stood back and looked at it, feeling a warmth in her chest that had nothing to do with the fireplace. This was what healing looked like. Not forgetting the past, not pretending the pain had never happened, but moving forward with wisdom gained from experience. This was what redemption felt like. Not erasing mistakes, but learning from them and using that knowledge to help others. That evening, Roberta attended the Christmas Eve service at the community church. The small sanctuary was packed with townspeople, and the choir sang carols that echoed through the wooden beams. Pastor Williams gave a sermon about second chances, about grace, about the importance of forgiveness, both giving it and receiving it. When the service ended and people filed out into the snowy night, calling out "Merry Christmas" to each other, Roberta felt a profound sense of belonging. This was her community. These were her people. And she was exactly where she was meant to be. The new year arrived with clear skies and crisp mountain air. Roberta spent New Year's Day hiking one of her favorite trails with Margaret, discussing their hopes and plans for the year ahead. I'm thinking about writing a book, Margaret said as they paused at a scenic overlook. About the history of Alder Valley, all the stories and characters who've made this place what it is. That sounds wonderful. Will you include recent events? Margaret smiled. How could I not? The story of Marcus Fleming and the FBI agent who saved him, it's already becoming part of our town legend. I'm not sure I want to be a legend. Too late, you already are. As winter gave way to spring, life in Alder Valley continued its gentle rhythm. Roberta turned 68. Her roses bloomed again. The tourist season began, bringing visitors from all over to enjoy the mountain air and scenic trails. In March, Roberta received word that Marcus Fleming had been granted early parole. He would be released in May, having served just under 2 years of his sentence. She attended his release day, standing with Sarah and the children outside the prison gates. When Marcus walked out, looking thinner and older but with hope in his eyes, his family rushed to embrace him. He saw Roberta standing nearby and approached her, extending his hand. Thank you, he said simply. For everything. She took his hand and squeezed it. Welcome home, Marcus. Your real work starts now. I know, and I'm ready. True to the promise that had been made, Marcus began working with the county's community outreach program, helping families in financial crisis connect with resources and support. He became an advocate for mental health services and financial counseling. He spoke at community meetings about his experience, using his own mistakes as a teaching tool. The Fleming family rebuilt their life, piece by piece. It was not easy. There were difficult moments, struggles, setbacks. But they persevered, supported by their community and by the lessons they had learned. Roberta watched their progress with quiet satisfaction. This was the kind of impact she had always wanted to make. Not dramatic rescues captured on camera, but lasting change in people's lives. By the time summer arrived, bringing warm days and long evenings, Roberta had fully integrated all aspects of her life. She was no longer running from her past or hiding from who she had been. She was simply Roberta Shields, former FBI agent, current information center worker, crisis intervention consultant, community volunteer, friend, and neighbor. She had learned to talk openly about her FBI career when people asked, sharing stories about her experiences without shame or guilt. She had learned that her past was not something to hide, but something to honor. It had made her who she was. One July afternoon, she was watering her garden when a car pulled up in front of her house. A young woman got out, looking nervous and uncertain. "Are you Roberta Shields?" the woman asked. "I am. Can I help you?" The woman approached slowly. "My name is Emily Valdez. I'm a graduate student studying crisis negotiation at the FBI Academy. I'm writing my thesis on your career, your techniques, your success rate, your impact on the field. I was hoping I could interview you." Roberta was surprised. "My career ended 16 years ago. I'm not sure how relevant my methods would be now." "Are you kidding? You're legendary in the field. Your case files are still studied in training. And what you did here in Alder Valley last year, it's been analyzed in seminars as a perfect example of rapport building and de-escalation. You're considered one of the best negotiators the FBI ever had." Roberta invited Emily in for tea, and they spent the afternoon talking about negotiation techniques, psychological approaches, and the art of finding humanity in desperate situations. Emily recorded everything, asking thoughtful questions and taking detailed notes. "Why did you leave the FBI?" Emily finally asked. "You were at the top of your field. You could have kept going for years." Roberta told her about Jennifer Matthews, about the guilt and the grief, about the decision to step away. "But you came back when you were needed," Emily pointed out. "That takes incredible courage. Or maybe it just takes caring about people more than you care about your own fear." Emily smiled. "That's exactly the kind of thing that makes you a great negotiator." After Emily left, promising to send Roberta a copy of her thesis when it was complete, Roberta sat on her porch and reflected on the conversation. It was strange to think that her work, her techniques, her experiences were still being studied and valued. She had assumed that walking away meant leaving no trace, but apparently, she had left a legacy after all. As autumn arrived again, painting the mountains in familiar shades of gold and crimson, Roberta marked her 17th year in Alder Valley. The town had become so completely home that she could barely remember her life before it. One October morning, as she was opening the information center, Sheriff Donovan stopped by with a proposition. "Roberta, I've been thinking, how would you feel about teaching a class at the community college? Crisis communication, conflict resolution, maybe some basics in negotiation. A lot of people could benefit from those skills. Teachers, social workers, anyone who works with people in difficult situations." Roberta considered the idea. It was not something she had thought about, but it made sense. "I'd be teaching civilians, not law enforcement?" Exactly. Practical skills for everyday situations. How to de-escalate an angry customer. How to talk someone down from making a rash decision. How to communicate effectively in high-stress situations. You wouldn't have to commit to a full semester. Maybe just a weekend workshop to start? Let me think about it. But she already knew her answer. Yes, she would do it. Because sharing knowledge, helping people develop skills that might prevent crises, that was valuable work too. The workshop was scheduled for late November. 25 people signed up: teachers, nurses, retail workers, a few deputies from neighboring counties, even some high school counselors. They filled a small classroom at the community college, eager to learn. Roberta stood in front of them, feeling both nervous and energized. She had not taught a class since her FBI days, but the material came back to her naturally. Crisis communication, she began, is not about winning an argument. It's not about being the smartest person in the room or having all the answers. It's about connection. It's about seeing the humanity in someone else, even when they're at their worst, and helping them see it in themselves. She taught them about active listening, about empathy without condescension, about finding common ground. She shared case studies, with identifying details changed for privacy, including the story of Marcus Fleming. She had role-playing exercises where students practiced de-escalation techniques. At the end of the 2-day workshop, one of the participants, a middle school teacher named Lisa, approached her. "Thank you for this class," Lisa said. "I had a student last year who was struggling, showing signs of crisis, and I didn't know how to reach him. I tried, but I lost him. He ended up dropping out. I've felt guilty about it ever since. But what you taught us this weekend, I feel like I have tools now. If I face a situation like that again, I'll be better prepared." Roberta placed a hand on Lisa's shoulder. "Don't carry guilt for something you couldn't control. You did your best with what you knew at the time. Now you know more, and you'll do better. That's all any of us can do. Keep learning, keep trying, keep caring." As winter settled over Alder Valley once again, Roberta found herself in a place of contentment she had never quite achieved before. She was using her skills to help her community. She was teaching others. She was living authentically, without shame about her past or fear about her future. She had learned that redemption was not a destination, but a journey, a daily choice to show up, to do better, to care deeply. She had learned that failure and success were not opposites, but partners in growth. And she had learned that home was not a place you found, but a place you built. One kind act, one connection, one brave choice at a time. 3 years after the incident at Mountain Valley Bank, Roberta Shields stood in the town square on a warm June afternoon, watching the dedication ceremony for the new Community Crisis Center. The center had been funded through a combination of county grants and private donations. It would serve as a hub for mental health services, financial counseling, job placement assistance, and crisis intervention. All the resources that might have prevented Marcus Fleming's desperate act if they had been more readily available. Marcus himself was there with his family, now fully reintegrated into the community. He worked full-time at the crisis center, helping to coordinate services and connect people with resources. His wife Sarah had completed a nursing degree and worked at the county hospital. Their children were thriving. Sheriff Donovan gave a speech about the importance of prevention and community support. The mayor unveiled a plaque dedicating the building. And then, to Roberta's surprise, Marcus stepped to the microphone. "I want to say something," he began, his voice steady despite the emotion in his eyes. 4 years ago, I made the worst decision of my life. I put people in danger. I scared them. I broke the law. And I thought my life was over." He paused, looking out at the crowd. "But someone saw something in me worth saving. Agent Roberta Shields, Birdie to most of you. She didn't see a criminal that day. She saw a desperate father who had made a terrible mistake. She talked to me like I was a human being. She listened to me. And she gave me a way out that allowed me to keep my dignity and my hope." He turned to look directly at Roberta. "Because of her, I'm here today. Because of her, my family is intact. Because of her, I'm able to help other people avoid making the mistakes I made. This center exists because she showed us that compassion and accountability can coexist, that punishment and redemption are not mutually exclusive." The crowd applauded, and Roberta felt tears prick her eyes. She had not expected this, had not wanted recognition. But as she looked around at the faces of her neighbors and friends, all supporting this center that would help prevent future crises, She felt a deep sense of purpose. After the ceremony, people milled around the new center, exploring its offices and conference rooms. Roberta stood in what would be the main counseling area, looking at the comfortable chairs, the soft lighting, the resources on the shelves. Margaret found her there. Quite something, isn't it? All because one retired FBI agent decided to come out of retirement for one day. Roberta shook her head. It's all because a community decided to respond to crisis with compassion instead of just punishment. I was just one small part of that. You're too modest. You know that, right? Maybe. But I've learned that the real heroes are the people who do the quiet, daily work of caring for each other. People like Sarah Fleming, working night shifts at the hospital. People like Marcus, counseling families in crisis. People like you, Margaret, running the library and making sure everyone has access to knowledge and stories. That's what makes a difference. As the sun began to set over the mountains, casting long shadows across the valley, Roberta walked home through familiar streets. She passed the information center where she still worked 3 days a week. She passed the community center where she taught her monthly workshops. She passed the homes of neighbors who had become friends, who had accepted her completely for who she was, all of who she was, past and present. When she reached her cottage, she paused before going inside. Her roses were in full bloom, their scent sweet on the evening air. The mountains stood eternal in the background, their peaks still topped with snow even in summer. This was her life now, not dramatic, not headline-grabbing, but deeply meaningful. She had found her place in the world, not by erasing who she had been, but by integrating all the pieces of herself into something whole and authentic. She thought of Jennifer Matthews, who had freed her from guilt. She thought of Marcus Fleming, who had reminded her that everyone deserves a second chance. She thought of this small town that had given her both refuge and purpose. And she realized that the story she had been telling herself for so many years, the story of failure and shame, of running and hiding, had been replaced by a new story, a story of healing and redemption, a story of courage found not in the dramatic moments, but in the decision to keep showing up, to keep caring, to keep believing in the possibility of change. Roberta Shields had spent 25 years as an FBI agent, 15 years in quiet retirement, and the last 3 years finding a balance between those two identities. She was 70 years old now, and she finally understood something fundamental. You do not heal from trauma by forgetting it. You heal by integrating it, by letting it teach you compassion and wisdom, by using it to help others navigate their own darkness. She was not the same person who had left Chicago 17 years ago, broken and guilt-ridden. She was not the same person who had talked Marcus Fleming out of that bank 3 years ago, terrified of failure. She was someone new, someone built from all those experiences, all those choices, all those moments of courage and vulnerability. She was Roberta Shields. She was Birdie. She was an FBI agent and a tourist information worker and a crisis consultant and a teacher and a friend and a neighbor. She was all of these things at once, and she was finally, completely at peace with that. As she entered her cottage and settled into her favorite armchair, she picked up the book she was reading. A mystery, naturally. But before she opened it, she looked around her living room, at the photographs on the mantel, at the flowers from her garden in their vase, at the certificates on the wall from the community thanking her for her service. Not bad, she said softly to herself, smiling. Not bad at all. Outside, the stars began to appear in the darkening sky. Somewhere in town, families were sitting down to dinner. Marcus Fleming was reading bedtime stories to his youngest child. Sarah was getting ready for her night shift at the hospital. Margaret was closing up the library. Sheriff Donovan was finishing his patrol. And in a small cottage on Maple Street, a 70-year-old woman who had saved countless lives and had finally learned to save herself, settled in for a quiet evening, content in the knowledge that she had found her way home. If this story touched you, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. We'd love to hear what inspired you the most. And where in the world are you watching from? Let us know below.